So you probably don't recognize this place. One of my mates actually just mentioned to me that he just got a hoist installed. And so yeah, we organized a date and he said I could come here and put the front end stuff in. I was kind of wondering how I was gonna, you know, be able to lift the vehicle up at home. All I've got really there is a block and tackle. I didn't really want to be lifting the front end of the car up from that with the, you know, big bar, winch, cab, engine, everything. And yeah, not being able to lift the car up is precisely why I've bought my own place and I'm going to put my own hoist in, but that's not going to be for another month and a half yet. So yeah, he was nice enough to let me come around and put the front end in this thing. So let's get started. Look pretty good, eh? All right, so what do we got today? We've got front coils, front shocks, 5-link, and while the diff's out, I'm gonna weld on the brace for the front, steering dampener, tie rod, panhard, shock extensions if I need them, and a front braided brake line. But yeah, I think the first step's probably going to be undoing the shocks at the bottom so that the diff's free when we go up. Otherwise, if you undo the shocks, obviously the diff's just going to drop until it, you know, breaks the brake line type thing. So yeah, I might get the shocks undone and then we'll put him up on the hoist. So I've had a bit of a issue where like you can't get the pads of the hoist anywhere. If I put the pads anywhere, it's going to interfere with where the drop boxes want to go, and I still need to be able to get these radius arms out. I think I'm going to have to do just one drop box at a time. And once the drop boxes are in, I can get the car up and do what I need to do. So if you're ever breaking these ball joints just here, all you got to do if you don't have a ball joint breaker, well sometimes even if you have a ball joint breaker, they can be still quite tight in there. All you need to do is give them a few firm blows on the side here, and then generally they'll loosen up straight away. Alrighty, so this has been a bit of a mission because we can't lift it by the hoist because the front arm gets in the way of where the drop box needs to go. You also kind of need the weight of the car supported while you take the radius arms out. I've kind of just been doing one at a time. I've managed to get the radius arms out and I've just dropped the cross member down a bit. So I used to have these bushes in here, which is where the pin of the radius arm pivoted. You basically replace that for one of these steel bosses and then you put the drop box in. And so yeah, I'm just gonna get these drop boxes in quickly, and that way at least I can lift the car up by the cross member again, which I couldn't before because they're in there for the final time. And then, you know, we can focus on getting the radius arm and everything in. But yeah, so that's what I've kind of been doing. It was just a matter of like kind of doing everything in the right order so I could grab it in a good enough spot for the hoist. But yeah, the drop boxes are in now and I'm just gonna undo the front diff from the brake line and everything. And then yeah, I can roll the front diff out. I'm just gonna undo that front tail shaft and undo the panhard, all that kind of thing. And yeah, we'll roll this front diff out. After a really slow start, I've managed to disconnect the front diff and have the drop boxes in. So let's roll this diff out and let's get some stuff done. All right, so I think the next place to start is on the diff. I've got the brace and everything that needs to go on, and I've just pinched the breather and the brake line just so I'm not leaking stuff everywhere. But yeah, so there's a brace that goes along the top here, the pumpkin cover, and then there's a couple of knuckle gussets. So what I might do first is hold the braces up to where they're gonna go and then sort of trace around them, and then I know where to remove some paint. I do want to attach these caster plates just roughly to the diff so that I know where I can and can't go with this pumpkin guard. All right, I might just get those not tight, but just snug so that they're everywhere they need to go, and then we can focus on getting this brace on. Here is our weld-on brace. You get the bit that goes on the front. Looks like I'm gonna have to get rid of that bracket. You get the knuckle gussets. One goes underneath, one goes over the top. Drain ring, that goes on the bottom of the drain ring there. And then the pumpkin guard. That one goes in there like that. So, I've got a bit of work to do to get all that to fit properly. So the first thing I need to do, I think, is cut this bracket off here. Usually I wouldn't, like, you'd be able to just weld up if there's the odd gap, but because like closing a gap there could mean the diff pulling. So like you don't want to be closing up too much of a gap. Looks like it needs just to go off that end. That is honestly pretty good. So I'm going to trace around it so I know where to take paint off. Might also get a line around that one there. It's time to go on to the next phase of this, which is to weld on all the bracing. Realistically, if I wasn't bracing the diff, it'd probably all be done by now because all the new arms and everything would already be in. Like, I might as well brace the diff now while it's all out, because I did the GQ one with it still in the car and it was a lot more difficult. At least with this, I can sort of turn the diff upside down to get the bottom ones on, turn it face up to get the front one on, and you're able to move the diff around a lot more. While these caster plates are on there nice and snug, I'm going to tack everything on, and then I'm going to take those off and then, weld it out. And then I can put them back on loosely and then roll it under the car, get some arms in. I have spaced out some stitches evenly, same way I did my GQ. I think you are supposed to weld it fully. I mean, I think stitching it is enough. I'm gonna do 50mm stitches with 100mm gaps. I decided I'd just burn that ring straight on because it doesn't really affect anything, so I thought, well, I've got it upside down, might as well just burn it all on. Now I'm ready to tack in the knuckle gussets. I mean, in my opinion, it's the worst bit. I hate doing this. You should really do it, like, don't copy me, do it with the diff undressed. But I have done it before, so I know I can get away with it. Just gotta, take your time. And I'll probably do it a bit colder than what I did this. I did this pretty hot. We'll get those tacked in next. When you turn these upside down, you'll see like a V that the wiper seal's created, and that's where you can't go past with weld, because that's where you're going to start catching it with this wiper seal. And so I've run a piece of string line that runs straight through the center of that V to the other V. So I'm making sure that this is level with this, and that this is also level that way with the diff tube. So yeah, I'm going to pump through these, and then I'll pick you guys back up when I'm welding them out. So yeah, I've done a few of the stitches now. I'm kind of moving in such a way that like I'm hoping nothing will move. For example, like I did nice big stitches on the outside, nice big stitch in the center. And then once that cools, I'll go in and fill in the other stitches just so it's like holding where it is. Another thing that's probably in my favor, every time I weld, I'm welding so I'm on a horizontal plane, and so that means rotating the diff, and so it's never gonna get hot and sink in one spot, like, because you're kind of rotating it. I think I might do some of the knuckles now, because I've kind of worked a big bit of heat into here. So now I might, because these are still cool on the outside, so yeah, I might do a bit of the knuckles now. While that diff is cooling down in between weld passes, I might as well start on this. So I've got to get the new sway bar mount. So I'm going to get those sway bar mounts on now. The superior sway bar has longer arms on it. And so all this does is relocates the mounting point for the sway bar back about probably 100 mil. Right, so I've given it a coat of paint, and then they actually give you this cool little stainless steel Superior logo now that you can pot rivet on there. So we're obviously gonna have to put that on there because that's pretty cool. It's time to probably get this 5-link in. I don't actually know what my clearance is going to be in terms of like bump stop and shock height. And so I do have a bump stop extension, and I also have a shock top extension. So I'm probably just going to have to put it in without coils just to see whether my shocks are going to bottom out, or whether I need to extend bump stops, or whether I need to extend shock towers, or you know what the story is. I'll probably just get the caster plates and arms on, and we'll go from there. So I've just done those loosely because I still want to be able to move them around to get bolts to line up easily as they come into the car. What I'm going to do now is hang the lower control arms from the drop boxes here, and then I'll lower the car down and line them up with these bottom ones here. Okay, so that's the lower arm in there just roughly for the time being. I'm just putting the top one in. So yeah, that's both of them in just roughly because I still need to determine the height of the vehicle. And so yeah, everything's just going in loosely. All right, well, I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. It never seems like you've actually achieved much, but we've achieved a lot. The diff's all braced up and finished, and the new 5-link is pretty much just sitting there. I haven't tightened it all the way up because it's still going to need some adjusting for car start once I know the final height of the vehicle. And then I'll be able to set up the shocks and bumps. But I've been here all day. It's been stinking hot all day. I've been on the welder and that. So yeah, I think we're going to call it there, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, so yesterday, got a lot done, got the diff brace done, got the 5-link in. Today is going to be about getting the shock lengths right and getting the bump stops right. But before we get to the shocks and bump stop extensions, I'm gonna drop the car down to ride height and I'm gonna get those kingpin angles right. And so I'll show you how to do that. So let's get started. All right, so last night I just loosely fitted in the 5-link, and before I go any further, I just want to make sure that kingpin angle's right. And so I wanted to talk a bit about kingpin angle. In the rear, you've only got a pinion angle, okay? So all we did was got the diff flange parallel with the gearbox flange, put an angle finder on that, zero it out, put it on this one, and make sure they match. In the front, you've obviously got a steering pivot on the front housing that is static with the pinion angle. The pinion angle is just gonna be a result of what's more important, which is your steering angle, or like kingpin angle. You'll notice like in motorbikes and BMX, the forks don't point straight down at the ground, they point slightly forwards. And that's because you wanna be steering off the back of the tire. And the steeper the forks are, you know, it'll give you more sort of stability and return to center properties. So like when you steer, it'll flick back to the middle and that gives you stability. And I'm trying to get between 3 and 4 degrees, which is the spec of a GU Patrol. So if you've got a GQ or a GU, I'd just be going between 3 and 4 degrees. So yeah, let's get under there and sort it out. All right, so that's the gauge at 0, up onto the kingpin flange. And that's currently sitting at 9.3 degrees. So now I'm just gonna jack that back until we get to about 3.5 to 4 degrees. So we're at 5.85. So that's about 3.2, 3.15. So I think I might aim for there. It's about 3.15. I've got a feeling like once I set it up, it'll sort of settle a bit and roll back a tiny bit. Yeah, I might leave it there and then set up these top arms. And that is another good thing about this 5-link, because like if you change the height of your car, usually with normal radius arms, you've got to do caster corrections or new caster plates. You know, it's all set in the arm. You cannot change it. It's static. Whereas with the 5-link, you can just adjust those top arms and change your, you know, steering angle depending on, you know, what coils you're running at any given time. I measured roughly from hole to hole. Let's get him in the car. That should set my pinion angle correctly. Top arms are in, they're not fully tightened yet. I'm gonna take the weight off this jack and I'm gonna let the angle sort of settle and then see what we ended up at. If we're between 3 and 4 degrees, we're good. And that is 3.6. Awesome. All right, on to shocks. I just was trying to get these shocks in and I was having a hard time. And so I gave Kissler a call. I forgot that he was actually running triples in his, but for some reason I thought he still had the 2.5s. And then I just got off the phone to him and checked the instructions, and yeah, you actually need to just clearance a bit out of here. I'm hoping it's just gonna be this side. Obviously, as this droops, the panhard pulls the diff that way, and so it's pulling the body of the shock just into the back of it here slightly. I won't show you this, it's just gonna be me swearing and carrying on. But yeah, just know that when you do go to the 2.5s in the front, you will need a clearance. That's all right, I'll get into it and I'll check back with you guys. Okay, so I got all that sorted. They're all clearance now. It honestly wasn't that bad. A couple of minutes on the die grinder, and now we're in. If you can't tell by my face, I've had a shit fight for the past couple of hours. So I really should have known that this was going to be the case. So yeah, these weren't tall enough for this size shock. I thought being only a 5-inch shock that, you know, I'd get away with the factory shock risers and just sort of gain a bit of flex. But when I eyed it up, the bump stop was still a long way off hitting before the stroke was over in the shock. And so, yeah, I rose the shock tower. That doesn't seem like a difficult job in and of itself. However, you do have to cut a hole to be able to get to the top nut because it's so close to the body now. And so, yeah, it was a matter of like moving heaps of vacuum lines out of the way on this side and moving the diesel filter out of the way on the other side. But yeah, I'm back up to sort of catching up now. So this here is a 30mm bump stop extension. I thought I'd just get the 30mm to start with, and if I need more room, I can always add it. These bump stop risers are stackable, so you can add however many you need. And then I'll be able to lower the hoist and make sure these all go home okay, and that they've got enough room to get everything on the top from the engine bay. So yeah, we'll get these coils in. All right, I'm coming in pretty close to being completely finished here at the front. Now, I've just got to chuck these remote resi mounts on the top here. And I think the only other thing to do is to chuck the dampener in and the front sway bar in, and then we're done. Alright, so that is both remote reses in, 5-link in, coils in, bump stop extensions in, braided brake line in, panhard in, tie rod in, everything's in. So I think I might call that for now here at Josh's, because, you know, he needs his shed back. I do have a couple of other things to do, like my front sway bar and the steering dampener. Like, that's just pretty simple. And so, yeah, I might finish this up here. I appreciate you guys watching, if you're still watching. If you haven't seen the first episode where I do the rear end, go and check that out. A huge thanks to Superior for supplying this gear. I cannot wait to use it, especially these 2.5 shocks. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. And if you want to see more of me working on this car, then please subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers. Also, a big thanks to Josh for letting me use this shed